Due to the lockdown and basically no travel at this time, Hertz has been pushed to file for bankruptcy. In this video, we are going to look at how Hertz got to this point and how this might affect other rental companies, and if this is a perfect time to go buy a new used car. Before we dive deeper though, don't forget to like and subscribe to see more videos. Hertz is as old as the automobile itself. They began by renting out Ford Model Ts and slowly expanded to become the second largest car rental company with over 10,000 locations across 150 countries. They also own Thrifty Car Rental and Dollar Rent-A-Car, so this is no mom and pop shop anymore. Before the pandemic, Hertz was actually growing pretty strong. They were continuing their turnaround efforts from their decline in 2017. With the introduction of ride-sharing and lower used car prices, many rental car companies were starting to suffer a little bit. The revenues, however, were increasing all of 2019 and were constantly beating earning expectations. And as we all know, this did not last. And as the world went into lockdown, the whole travel business, from airlines to rental cars, all started hemorrhaging money. Even as states begin to open, people are still hesitant to travel, and the rental car business lives and dies on travel. It's most likely going to take a few years to get the travel industry back to where it once was. This left a lot of companies that were not doing well previously out to dry. We saw this with many struggling retailers such as J.Crew, and we will continue to see it as the lockdown slowly begins to lift. Right now, Hertz finds itself with a lot of debt and no source of income to be able to pay back any debt. They can't bring in anywhere near the amount of money that they need with renting cars since travel is almost non-existent at the moment. Their other main source of income, which many people don't actually think about, is in the used car market. Hertz and other rental companies get new cars directly from manufacturers. Since they buy so many cars in bulk, they actually get a heavy discount from the manufacturer. They'll rent the car out for 1 or 2 years, and once its life cycle is ended, they go back and resell the car. Before they actually go and buy these cars though, they take into account the money that they'll make from renting it, plus resale, and then they minus the depreciation and maintenance on the car to see if the car will actually net them money in the end. This is actually a great strategy for rental car companies, so they don't have to just rely on renting out cars, and they can make money on the back end from reselling the cars itself. Sometimes though, instead of actually buying the car outright, they make a repurchase agreement with the manufacturer. This lets Hertz lease or basically just rent the car out until a set term, and once that term is up, they give the car back to the manufacturer that then goes and sells it to other dealerships. This is the exact same thing you would do if you go lease a car from a dealership yourself. This works for Hertz and the manufacturer. Hertz gets to constantly rotate new cars into their fleet because who actually wants to rent a beaten down car? And the manufacturer gets a slightly used car back that they then can go resell to a dealer. This is a safer way for rental companies to constantly be rotating in new cars, but on the downside, they actually lose money on the resale of the car if they owned it straight out. This is where a balance has to come in between actually owning cars in your fleet and just leasing them out. Hertz total fleet size is around 500,000 vehicles. They own around 400,000 of these vehicles in their fleet. This is all fine if the cars that they own keep their value in line with normal depreciation. With the lockdown though, it's a different story. Used car prices plummeted because nobody was looking to buy a new car since everybody is scared that they might lose their job. And as you can guess, this made all those 400,000 cars into a big problem. Hertz could no longer rely on the income from selling those cars, and on top of that, the majority of rentals stopped, and the bills were still coming due. They were actually able to negotiate a short-term hold for their $400 million debt from their creditors, which actually include IBM and Lyft. Who would have thought that? However, they couldn't negotiate anything longer term. This forced Hertz into Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Since it is a Chapter 11 and not a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which I go over the difference more in depth on my look into J.Crew, but this basically means that they are still operational. Hertz actually says that it has enough cash for now to support its daily operations. The bankruptcy also just includes their US and Canadian subsidiaries and does not include its international operations. If travel begins to pick up, the Hertz name will survive the bankruptcy, but will most likely be forced to scale down. So does this mean Hertz is saved and you should go buy their stock at crazy low prices since they are still operational? The answer is probably not, because oftentimes in Chapter 11, the company is worried about paying creditors back first and worried about the shareholders last. The news of the bankruptcy caused an already beaten down Hertz stock to drop almost 50% overnight. Oftentimes the company's stock actually goes to zero, and the company issues completely new stock, which would make the current shares worthless. One interesting thing to note though is that Carl Icahn is the lead shareholder of Hertz, with a $1.6 billion investment that is now valued at around $170 million. And he continued to buy more with the bankruptcy looming. I believed he did this because he thought he could help work out a deal with creditors, or try and buy Hertz and take it private, but we all know how that worked out last time. Anyway, if you're looking to buy a new used car, this might be the perfect time to get a great deal. They began flooding the used car market to try and gain back some cash. This is forcing the price of used cars down even more. This could also have a rippling effect, as car dealers holding onto a lot of used inventory might not be able to make a profit with prices so low. Hertz also stopped 90% of its 2021 orders. This will definitely affect automakers, as 10% of auto sales for the year are usually from rental companies. Once you begin to dive deeper into any company, you begin to realize how industries are connected and how one industry affects others in ways that you wouldn't even think about. That is why when a recession occurs and companies begin to go bankrupt, it truly does have a domino effect on the global economy. And with that being said, as always, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe to see more.